the Joe Lopez case, when I was first called by someone, and we discussed it, I think I turned it down 3 times. I just didn't see the prospect of obtaining a first conviction, parole, where you had the kind of allegations and the kind of convictions that occurred in this case. Sandra just stayed on me and stayed on me. So finally, I said, okay, Sandra, here's what we'll do. We'll send a polygraph operator out to the prison, and we'll polygraph Joe. I thought that would probably be the end of it. Well, the polygraph operator was a very competent person I've used several years now. He comes back and says he passed the polygraph. Well, I still wasn't too sure. So we sent a second polygraph operator from Houston, the best known polygraph operator there, back out to the prison and polygraphed Joe again. He passed the second polygraph. Now they had my attention, but we only had 20 weeks. With Sandra's help and the help of my associate Nancy Bunham, who is kind of an expert in sex offender cases, having defended them for 4.5 years as supervisor of the prison's public defender service in the area of sex offenses, we were able to get a case put together. The next thing we did was we sent probably one of the best known sex therapists, Dr. Shelley Graham of Austin, out to evaluate Joe. She comes back and says, well, at best, he's a very low risk to reoffend if he reoffended. And as a sex therapist, I've got to go with what the judgment says. So right now, he's a sex offender, and he is, on paper, a sex offender. We don't deny that. Right now in my office, we have 4 of these cases where someone was offered a very good plea deal, just as Joe was offered an extraordinarily good plea deal, and I congratulate his 2 lawyers who acquired that deal for him, because when this trial was cranking up, things looked pretty bleak. Joe turned down what I think was an exceptional plea deal because he said, I'm not guilty. I'm not guilty. He believed in this case. We recently had another case in our office. A young Navy man came home. His girlfriend had had a child by him, and she wanted him to resign his parental rights. He too went to a jury. The doctor testified the child was accused of being molested and showed no physical signs whatsoever of ever being molested. The psychiatrist said he doesn't fit the profile of the sex offender. The guardian ad litem the court appointed to represent the child testified she saw the mother on several occasions coaching the child as to what to say. The child gets on the stand and testifies, and as most juries do, they then just forget about all the defense stuff. Luckily, the judge only gave him 6 years. We just got his first parole granted. Again, we had 2 polygraphs and a sex evaluation that says this guy didn't do it as to the polygraphs and that he's not a serious offender. We have 2 more just like that. With every one of the exonerations that happen in this case, in this state, the state has to pay that person $80,000 a year for each year they sentence. In one case we had where we got an exoneration for this kind of situation. The guy got 40 years, had top-notch lawyers in Dallas. We lost his parole case by 1 vote. But a young lawyer in my office determined to stay on this case, got the family to put up some trust fund money. 2 years later, the young 6-year-old girl who had testified against him. We found through investigative work, she says, "I'm so glad you found me. This has bothered me all my life." He didn't do it. We got him exonerated after he'd done 12 and a half years, and we were able to get him $60,000 in damages. These cases happen all the time. With Joe, we have an uphill battle. And the events that surround these cases are very concerning. And not all of them are innocent. I don't imply that for a minute. We had the polygraphs, we had the therapist report, and we had medical evidence that was taken of the victim in this case within, 48 hours of the time she got home, where the doctor examined her and said there's no evidence of any sexual assault. However, that was deemed not admissible during the course of the trial. That was another point of some virtue that happened in the course of this case. Now let me tell you how the parole system works if you have a sex offense as serious as the one imposed on Joe. Normally, a parole panel of 3, 1 board member and 2 commissioners, vote a case. You have to have 2 out of the 3 votes to make it. But in a case as serious as Joe's conviction is, it's a different burden. You have to get 5 out of 7 board members to approve the parole. Then if you get the parole approved, you're subject to a 4-month rehab program, a 9-month rehab program, or an 18-month rehab program that you must complete before you're allowed to walk out the door. After we presented our case, the parole board voted Joe the 4-month program. He will complete that program, and then he will be allowed to return to Brownsville, where he will be under very strict and confining conditions of parole. Leg monitors, pre-weekly schedules of where he's going to be, limitations on where he can be. You won't see Joe out on tour for a while. Doesn't mean he won't have access to his recording studio and approximately 180 new tunes he'll be working on. Joe's had some minor health problems, nothing of a serious nature, but problems that need attended to. And if you don't know, let me tell you, prison medicine leaves a lot to be desired. So we want to get Joe out. We want to get him healthy. We want to get him in shape again. And in the interim, we're going to be working on what will be probably a several-year project down the line for his release from the bonds of this conviction. Another thing that is horrible, and it doesn't end after you're exonerated, if you're exonerated, is the social stigma that attaches to these cases. And in that regard, I want to comment about how I am frustrated with my friends in the media. You know, if you're a sex offender, it may be you were caught urinating behind a 7-Eleven the second time at 2 in the morning. Then you are a sex offender, just as the person who is a serial rapist. And that stigma attaches to you. We have no means or method in this state where we classify the degree of crimes. Let me tell you right now, the parole board does not parole serial sex offenders. They don't parole predatory sex offenders. Those people stay in prison. I was concerned that they may think of Joe in that light with the convictions he had. Luckily, we convinced the parole board that was not true, because those people just don't get out. It's too bad that when I read in the press or see on the evening news somebody was a sex offender or arrested for a sex offender because some 20-year-old kid was watching porno on his computer and the cops felony and he's labeled a sex offender. That is unfortunate, it's life destroying, and his life is seriously affected. We intend to continue our investigation into this case. We have some very interesting things that have arisen since I've been in this case. I am not at liberty to discuss those things now because they are ongoing and under investigation. But I will assure you that we are going to pursue those. We are going to, with Sandra's help, Sandra is going to commence a fundraising project for legal fees. We're going to bring a top-notch chief attorney in the area of these post-conviction matters. And we're going to continue on in our efforts to exonerate Joe. But for right now, he's on parole. He needs to go through a readjustment period. While Joe was in prison, I'm going to tell you something you probably didn't know. Joe was such a celebrity that when he got, I used to work in the Texas prison. I was one of the first public defenders there. And I know how those systems work. I brought lawsuits against, I've been an expert witness about from plaintiffs against the Texas. It's the first time I've ever seen this happen. The prison administration determined that Joe was such a celebrity, they weren't sure they could protect him in the general population. That man has sat in a cage by himself for 10 years. Now, I'll tell you a little side story. I went to Joe when I first got in the case, and he told me that, and I almost fell out of my chair. And I said, Joe, do you want me to try to get you out of there? He says, hell no, Bill. They've given me the guitar, and I've written 180 songs in there. They leave me alone. I thought that was pretty good. But anyway, he's adjusted. He does have this parole condition of 4 months rehabilitation to do. He's going to go through in a cage for 10 years, he's going to go through quite an adjustment being back in society. And he's and his family both. And what a wonderful family I've met by meeting Joe Lopez family. But he's going to have an adjustment period. And I'm going to ask you all to please consider his privacy. He's got a lot of stretching out to do, and relearning and readjusting. I call it the Rip Van Winkle syndrome. When you go into prison, say at age 18, and you don't get out until you're 28, you're still the 17-year-old person you were when you went in, you get out. Well, I think Joe's, what, 65 now? Joe's now 65, so he doesn't have the young Rip Van Winkle syndrome, but the world's turned a few times since he's been in prison. And I ask that you give him the opportunity to enjoy some privacy, some time with his family, and some time to get himself back together. And then we hope in the reasonably near future, the last one of these we did where we were successful in getting exoneration for 3 years. So give us a little time, let us do our work, give us your support, your continued support, and I hope you'll see Joe Lopez back on the concert trail in a fair